Hello, good day and welcome back to our virtual classroom. I hope okay pa rin kayo at kailangan nating tapusin ng semester na to, no? Despite of our problems, lalo na itong lumalalang problema natin sa pandemic. So, always stay at home, and I hope this recorded video could help.
Welcome to Kenchong TV, your source of information on culture, history, society, family, and education. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. Click also the notification bell to be updated of more videos. And don't forget to like, share, and comment down below. So, this is part 4 of the highlights we are giving regarding the great novel of Dr. Jose Rizal, the Noli. In this part, we are going to focus on some critical issues which somehow a little different with the usual way we interpret the novel. So I hope this would help. This would also be part of the assessment we'll be having for this second term, and I hope this recorded video will help you understand more, so that you'll have a good understanding of the Noli Me Tangere. So in this part, we are going to specifically talk about Ibarra and Elias family tree. Of course, we're going to explain why we needed to talk about this, especially to reflect the relationship of the Creoles and Indios. Another is all about the literary strategies made by Rizal, because as we are saying, the novel is part of literature, but some instructors, some professors, some educators, some students have misunderstood the idea of between a factual documentation and a realistic novel. So in this part, we're going to specifically talk about the relationship between realist novel and the factual documentation. And finally, in this part, we're going to talk about the central problem of the Noli Me Tangere, according to Caroline Howe, in which she stated that the main problem of the Noli Me Tangere was all about modernity. Alright, so from this figure, you would find the Crisostomo Ibarra family versus Elias family as something that we can see a certain relationship, positive and negative, from being optimistic and pessimistic. So we can see here the first generation family, Elias grandfather, and one Crisostomo Ibarra great grandfather. So that's the first generation, Don Pedro Ibarramendia. So Don Pedro Ibarramendia here was identified as a Creole, and of course the family of Elias was an Indio, so a simple bookkeeper at Ibarramendia house. So with the tweak or the story's background, we can see that a long time ago there was this relationship between an Indio, a worker of a particular Creole, but this Creole married an Indio. So it says here unidentified, possibly a mestiza, but mestiza, Creole, and Indio. In the second generation of these families, we have now Don Saturnino Ibarra, and married to a woman from Manila. So it's now the relationship between an Indio and Creole. And of course, they followed with with Elias. So Elias' father. Okay, and the third generation here is already Elias and Don Rafael Ibarra. And Don Rafael Ibarra, all the male characters here in the Ibarra family had a relationship with an Indio, and of course with the family of Elias. So in the presentation, actually Elias is supposed to be older than Ibarra, but in some other representation they're somehow equal. But the good thing here is we could always say that Elias is more mature than Ibarra, and that's what we can see in most of the illustrations. So what's the relationship between this? Bakit natin to pinapakita? Because tingnan natin, Don Pedro Ibarramendia, a Manila businessman who, when his warehouse burned down, accused his bookkeeper, that's the grandfather of Elias, and ruined not only him but also all his descendants up to Elias. So we can see here that the family of Ibarra enslaved the family of Elias, and even punished them because of what happened, because they accused the family of Elias to be the one responsible in the burning down of the warehouse. So pinahirapan, in a short, pinahirapan ang family ni Elias. Down to Don Saturnino, another businessman. So however, we have this described characteristics as somebody who is violent, at times cruel, but very active and industrious. So he was described as the one who made San Diego a thriving town from a miserable heap of huts. So one thing that we could learn here is there's this relationship between an Indio and the Creole, but the Creole had been already at the heart of this archipelago, and they helped somehow, one way or another, to make the country, to make the town of San Diego. San Diego here actually represents the Philippines, a thriving town from a miserable heap of huts. So tumulong sila. Sila ang nagpalago ng industriya, ng kalakal, ng merkado sa Pilipinas. Ang mga Creole. Ang mga Creole ay ang mga, hindi natin masyadong na-define na ito, but these are also in one of the handouts, you could also see the Creole as somebody who are known to be the insulares, the Spaniards born here in the Philippines, or Spaniards born outside Spain. Not necessarily in the Philippines lang pala. Pwedeng born somewhere else in Mexico, in China, but outside Spaniards born outside Spain. So Don Rafael Ibarra was now the father of Juan Crisostomo Ibarra, was known to be already graduating from Creole to Filipino. So in this third generation, nakikita na natin na mas nagiging Filipino na si Ibarra, Don Rafael Ibarra, not already a Creole. So medyo naging maganda na yung kanyang ugali. Sabi dito, he was loved by his workers, and when he knocked down a tax collector who punished a child who mocked him, he was thrown onto jail. So yan, dyan nakulong ang father ni Ibarra. Then we have now Juan Crisostomo Ibarra y Magsalin, because Don Rafael Ibarra married a woman with the surname of Magsalin. Now considered a fourth generation Ibarra. Educated in Switzerland, outside the country, and had been influenced by liberalism in Europe. So he was known to be a civilized man who inherited a quarrel with the peninsulars but did not care. He did not care to pursue. That's the idea. That's the representation of Rizal of Ibarra. One who is egoist, sabi nga ng isang author. But he wanted to elevate the condition of the masses through his modernist project. And what is the project of Ibarra? The building of a school to educate the native. Now we have the family of Elias. So, as we have said, the family of Elias worked with the family of Ibarra. So Elias' grandfather lived in Manila and served as a bookkeeper in a Spanish merchant's establishment named Don Pedro Ibarramendia. So this was the great-grandfather of Juan Crisostomo Ibarra. And Elias' father struggled to recreate his image, worked hard, and found work in the household of a rich man. And third, of course, Elias. So we can see here the struggle, the life of an Indio in their relationship with the Creoles or the Spaniards. But the Spaniards who are born in the Philippines, So why are we trying to narrate this? Rizal was very intelligent. Rizal was very keen in presenting these two types of characters in his novel, because actually that time we're going to talk about Rizal's unknowable community. He was actually referring not to our nation now, but he was referring to a nation of Creoles. Okay, the Ibarras, the likes of the Ibarras, na doon patungo ang Pilipinas, parang ganon. So mestizo yung style. So some points to consider: the relationship between Ibarra and Elias, the changes that occur across the different generations could mean that the Creoles in the Philippines were considered Filipino. And in fact, as I've said, this actually was the end point of Jose Rizal's unknowable community or imagined community, the Philippines being inhabited by the Creoles. Okay, so Indios have to work hard to be part of this Creoles community, just like Rizal himself. Okay, but Rizal, of course, had only this Chinese bloodline, but not Spanish. Now, the relationship between Ibarra and Elias shows the relationship between the Creole and the Indio, which was paradoxically and ironic. But there's a possibility, again, even this paradoxical and ironic, even contradicting, kahit magkaiba, magkalaban, but there's a possibility that a Creole and Indio could coexist peacefully. That's how Ibarra presented the characters now of Elias and Ibarra. That Ibarra helped Elias and Elias helped Ibarra and even saved Ibarra in many times. So the relationship between Creole and Indio as presented by Elias and Ibarra somehow depicted the idea that a Filipino in the Philippines, an Indio and a Mestizo would coexist. Next, the other thing that we need to emphasize in the Noli Me Tangere is the idea that the Noli Me Tangere becomes the Bible in preaching nationalism, and this should be debunked because, as we have said, the interpretation of the novel is that we must bear in mind that the novel is both about and not about. So, ito yung sinabi kong 50-50. It's about and not about the realities in the Philippines. In Rizal's letter to Barrantes, ito isang Spaniard to na isa sa mga critic ni Rizal, he pointed out that The advantage of writing a realist novel over an ethnography or a factual documentation of social conditions in the Philippines is that one is able to criticize, take note of this, one is able to criticize without being liable to these criticisms. So this was from the words of Rizal himself. Sinabi niya mismo na wala naman yatang rules sa literature na kapag isinulat mo ang isang yun na yung iniisip mo. In fact, the idea of writing a realist novel is that one is able to criticize without being liable to these criticisms. So, one of the literary strategies was to write in the form not in a factual documentation or an ethnography, but a novel. Just to, of course, Rizal was very prophetic that later he knew that his novel would become will be banned, would become critical to the Spanish government. Now, last point. What is the central problem of the Noli? According to how it revolved around modernity. The problem of the Noli Me Tangere is that it lacked the representation of these things like ignorance and lack of education, belief in superstitious rumors and gossips, dominance of the friars, excessive religious fanaticism, absence of external relationship with other countries. Yeah. These are the presentations of the novel. That's why there's a problem with modernity, because these are all backward activities. These do not represent the modern society. Yan ang pinakita ni Rizal. Yung nobela, pinakita niya doon yung ignorance and lack of education. Backward yan, hindi yan modern. Belief in superstitions, another backward. Rumors, dominance of the friars, another backward. Excessive religious fanaticism, another backward, or let's say conservative. Absence of external relationship with other countries. These are all lacking in the novel that would represent modernity. Furthermore, we think of the Noli Me Tangere as having a problem of modernity because these things, secular, technical, and international, are not clearly presented. And these are the depictions of a modern society, being secular, being not very religious, not with religious fanaticism. Technical, that means industrial, and international. There is a connection with the international community. But the novel could still be considered as a nationalist novel because this is something that we need to be proud about the novel, because the novel, according to How, has shown a knowable community, but many of the significant features as such are still being conceived. So that's a problem. However, despite of this excess, so we call that excess before, no? But despite of this excess in the novel, what makes the Noli nationalist is that it is considered to be the first textual representation of the Philippines that made this community knowable, able to imagine. So yun. That's those are some parts, no? Some critical aspects of the Noli Me Tangere. So I hope you would find this interesting and include this in your readings for the critical aspects of the Noli Me Tangere. Thank you so much, and good day.